Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Manifest This Believer versus Skeptic. So, Jen, this is part 2 of the law of assumption. Do you want to just give us a brief overview of part 1 and where we're heading tonight?
So, in the last episode, which I highly recommend people go back and listen to because the law of assumption is if you learn one thing and one thing only, this can change your life. We talked about how Neville Goddard broke down the law of assumption, how he taught it, and how you can start applying it in your life by assuming your desires are already real.
Okay, so, and my perspective was, pretend hard enough, and if it happens, it happens. I'm just kidding. Kind of. I still have a lot of questions, though,
For
and
sure.
I guess we're going to talk about what to do when it's not working and how you're supposed to become this magical version of yourself who already has the thing that you want.
Exactly. Because this is where most people get stuck. They'll say, I tried assuming and I tried imagining, but nothing happened. So let's talk about what you actually did, why it did or didn't happen, and how to fix it.
Okay, so why it feels like it's not working. So, if assuming something actually changes your reality, why doesn't it happen instantly or at least as fast as we think it should?
Okay, because you're not actually just battling the desire, you're battling the old identity of you that says it's not possible. And this is huge. We talked in the last episode about brainwashing. I believe there's an element of brainwashing involved. We literally have to remember that the law of assumption is working not just on what you want, but also on all of the ideas that you think are not possible. It's working on what you believe to be true. And I used the example of a mama to be wanting to get pregnant and have a baby. If she's holding the idea and the feeling and living in the end, folding the clothes, patting her pretending that she has this baby and getting to the feeling of that. And yet her doctor is saying to her, you've only got a few eggs left. Like, this is going to be really hard for you. If she lets that hard for you part get into her brain more than the feeling of the wish fulfilled, she's doomed.
Okay, so if I assume I'm rich, but I secretly believe I'm broke and I'm bad with money, what's going to show up?
The belief that dominates will win. The belief that dominates will win. So that's why Neville said your state creates your world. You must change your state, not just wish for a different outcome. I'll give you an example. I have this terrible ism that comes over me whenever I spend money. And I mean, even at the grocery store. And I'm not telling you this to brag, but I don't need to worry about buying groceries. I just don't. I've done well. I'm lucky. I have manifested everything I've ever wanted. But this film comes over me, and what it plays in my head is there's no more where this is coming from, Jennifer. This is it. You better be careful because that nut that you are drawing from, that's it. When it's gone, it's gone. Which couldn't be further from the truth. I'm always bringing in money. I am earning money. I am getting money. I have passive income money. But that's in my head. So if that little brain, that little voice keeps saying, there's no more coming, Jennifer. You've got to be careful. There's no more coming, Jennifer. That's going to win. And so guess what I'm going to attract from the world? More of that feeling. Worried, anxious, fearful, never enough. So I do have to work on personally myself. I have to work on combating that every single day.
So, something's come to mind while you've been explaining this.
Okay.
And I've always looked at it in a different way, and now you have me looking at it under the law of assumption, where my whole life I've been told I'm terrible at math. And I believed that I was terrible at math, despite the fact that I understand companies and, everything worked out on the financial side of things, et cetera, et cetera. In my head was a teacher telling me how bad I was at math. And then when I had to do my MBA, I had to take a stats course.
Uh-huh.
And, I'm saying math, I mean anything with numbers was what was in my head. And for 6 weeks, I had a tutor and I cried every single day until I hit a tipping point. And all of a sudden, I understood it. Fast forward 15, 20 years. And I was doing some work with an individual who is brilliant at math. And I am in awe at how this person calculates. And I suddenly realized as I was trying to explain to this person how I came to this exact same answer they came to, this person said to me, "Oh, I see where you're going. You just get there differently." And, I'm not I've got a feeling that this sort of fits into the law of assumption, where I'm so much into I'm terrible with numbers, and now suddenly realize, using your GPS analogy, I just take a different path.
Great.
And I
Yeah.
no longer believe that I'm bad at math.
Which is funny because I know you and I know you're not bad at math. Merger, like mergers and acquisitions negotiation doesn't come from someone that's bad at math. But isn't it funny what we walk around carrying that is just not true?
Yeah. Yeah. And
And
how
that's a good
different would
test
it have been if I learned that a heck of a
earlier.
lot earlier?
Yeah, and so that's a good test is when we're dealing with something, for example, me and my money issue, I'm broke, right? There's no more coming. I can stop myself, and again, awareness is huge. Stop myself and say, Jennifer, is that true? And then I would go, now I'm defending myself, right? No, of course it's not true. You got this, and this. So we build a case for the opposite. We
Okay.
build a case for the opposite.
Okay, this is interesting. Because that's what we would do for a friend, right? Like if I had
Totally.
told you this before, you would have built the case for me saying, "Sharon, you're being absolutely ridiculous."
100%. But don't forget, we are trying to change belief systems, and mine's 56 years running, right? I've had belief systems for 56 years. I'm sure it had to do with being raised by a World War II mom
Right.
that was born in England with bombs and gas masks and gas shelter or bomb shelters in the whole 9 yards. Like, we have to hold on to what we've got, Jennifer, because we never know if they're going to take it away. Or my husband's lineage, which was the dictator in Portugal. The only reason that they didn't have everything taken away from them in dictatorship was because they owned a farm and they could farm their own food. And so when Salazar came around, they could hide 2 tomatoes and 2 potatoes in a dirt hole, and they were able to feed themselves, but everyone else had everything else taken. So when you live like that, you pass it on to your children. They're raised with this lack mentality. It takes an awful lot of daily work to go to yourself and say, we don't live like that anymore, Jennifer. We're not in a war. We don't have to worry. We don't live in lack, and calm our nervous system down.
Okay, so how do you do that?
Well, we've talked about my routines. I do a lot of things, and I believe my routines are helpful for everybody. Yoga. You can turn your nose up at yoga, and there's like 10-minute practices you can do. But that idea of sitting down and calming down is the key, right? We need to calm down. I do it a variety of ways. Yoga, I watch Joel Osteen every single morning and I journal and I say affirmations and I pray and I exercise. I meditate during yoga as well. All of those practices, walking in nature, working out, reading, taking a bath, those self-care, they're not joking when they talk about self-care.
Mhm.
Self, soul, source, care, caring for the self, the source.
I just read something interesting today. I think it's called cricketing, not the game cricket, cricketing. When you're, and I do this because I love beautiful sheets. I love the feeling of sheets. But when you're rubbing your feet together, and I do
Yes.
that to feel the sheet,
Yep.
apparently it has an effect on your nervous system
For
and
sure
it
it does.
calms down your nervous system.
It does. And in fact, if anybody follows Esther Hicks, Abraham Hicks, she will talk about feeling good from the very beginning of your day. And she'll talk about lying in her bed and feeling the sheets on her feet and on her body. And she'll just say, I'm so grateful for these sheets. I'm so grateful for this feeling. I'm so grateful, and get into the feeling of feeling good. That's what we're talking about. The law of assumption is assuming the feel good feelings, even if you don't have the thing that you think is going to make you feel good.
Okay, so are we connecting the thing you want or the way you want to be with the feelings? That's a
Totally.
direct line connection.
The feeling is the frequency. The frequency is the answer.
Okay.
We're talking about a lot of issues that surround the idea of manifestation, but it's actually just feeling good. The law of assumption is another way to get us into the feeling of feeling good. Good
Okay.
feelings just bring good things: money, wealth, health, renos, babies. Again, it really is as simple as this idea of clenched versus it's all okay.
So let's for a moment move away from the things, the tangibles, right?
Yeah.
And into feeling good, feeling strong, feeling healthy. Because
That's the point.
I
Yeah.
think a lot of times we get caught up in stuff that's material.
Totally. So, and that's a good point. I mean, if you can think about it, I liken it to a bridge where we ask on one end of the bridge and we get once we've crossed the bridge, right? And what happens in between the start and the end of the bridge is manifestation. It doesn't matter what you want. Even if you just want to feel better, that is the manifestation. But it isn't the feeling of goodness and enjoying life and the journey of life and the bypasses and the overpasses of life that is the answer. It is in feeling good.
So it's a moment by moment by moment.
Feeling good. It's
Okay.
feeling good regardless of what's at the end of the bridge.
Hmm.
So, to your point, you're talking about I want to get something out of this. No, you just want the thing because you think it will make you feel better. You want the riches because you think you'll feel better. You want the man because you think you'll feel better. Why wait for the man, the money, the health to feel better? Feel better now, and the rest will come.
Or they won't, because that might not be what the universe has in store for you, because that's not the best it can offer.
Maybe, but I bet you it'll maybe, but listen, the universe source is listening all the time, and all it wants to do is give you your wildest dreams. So you're right, you might not get that, but you'll get even better. And I can be attestation to that. I have asked and been given way more than my ask.
Right. Okay, so how do you handle resistance and doubts and triggers?
This is tough because they're everywhere from everyone all the time, especially if you feed into that. This is where a lot of people quit, right? Because this is where it's hard to stay knowing all the time, which is why, and I'll say it again, I've said it before, daily practice every morning. You've got to build up that muscle. This is where magic happens, though, when you can hold in that idea of feeling the wish now fulfilled without the actual thing in your 3D reality world. Resistance is just old programming resurfacing. So again, we've got to reprogram. I do it every day. Doubt, that's your ego protecting you from disappointment. Oh, Jennifer, what if it doesn't happen? What if the baby never comes? What if you're supposed to live a life of poverty and struggle? That's just your ego protecting you. We do it all the time. We don't need protection though, because our protection comes from source.
Okay.
Fear, that's your nervous system panicking because you're stepping out of the familiar. And listen, your ego system is so egotistical. It doesn't want you to look foolish. It doesn't want you to look like you've got mud on your face. So it's going to sabotage you all the time. And again, the key is awareness. When you just say, I see what you're doing, ego. I see what you're doing. You're trying to protect me from making a fool of myself. But I know if I start that podcast now and I live like a famous podcaster, even if I will look foolish, I don't care because I am a podcaster and that's what a podcaster does. So you see what I did there?
Yeah. So a lot of what I'm hearing really, and I think we've chatted about this before, about how we live oftentimes very numbed and we numb ourselves in multiple ways. But I think what I'm hearing here is to really be conscious of who we are, what we're doing, what we want, and moment by moment remain aware and conscious.
Yeah. And I mean, another mic drop. Yes, that's the answer, but it's not easy, right?
Yeah. So
So Go ahead.
So we shouldn't see doubt as failure.
No, no, don't see doubt as failure, but recognize doubt as the enemy.
Not a
Some might,
warning system.
no, some might call it the devil, right? It is the enemy showing up. It is the dark showing up and saying, you don't have what it takes. It's the two little angels. One's a good angel, one's a bad angel on each shoulder. One's saying, you can do this, Jennifer. You want this. Go get it. Let's do it. The other one's saying, you can't do that. You don't have any experience. Who says you get to do that? Which one are you going to listen to?
Here's what I might argue is that sometimes listening to the you can't do that, you turn around and do a big old watch me. Sometimes some people are motivated by the you can't.
100%. So, whatever motivates you, I don't pretend to know that with our massive audience. I don't pretend to know what that is, but the bottom line is just because you feel fear, just because you have doubt, just because you're wobbling a little bit, doesn't mean that that's what we should be listening to, because you can have, be, and do anything
Okay.
you want in life.
So the tools to use when we're wobbling.
So, when you're spiraling, and the key is to catch the spiral, of course, right? Recognize you are in a state of spiral. Catch it. What are you assuming in that spiral? Are you assuming doom and gloom? Are you assuming worst case scenario? Catch it. Like, for example, for me, oh, there's no more where this comes from. This is it. And pause. That's a choice point right there. I can stand at the cashier and say, God, like, there's no more where this is coming from, and flip it. I talk about rewriting the story. Flip it. What would I assume if I knew I was safe and supported and there was more where this came from? How would I act? How would I feel? So, in that scenario, standing at the cashier, I would feel confident. I would feel peaceful. I would hand over my debit card knowing there's more where that comes from. This is supporting my family, nutritious food to eat, whatever story you have to tell yourself, and then anchor that and use what we call embodiment tools, which again, I don't love the world of embodiment. Speak as your future self. How would she show up? How would she act? What would she say? What would she literally say to the cashier if she lived in an abundant, ever flowing, always topped up life? I'm just using that as an example. And right from the end, I love how my life feels now that I have an abundance of cash flow passively flowing to me at all times, and then move my body like someone that does that.
Okay. Okay. And then you also mentioned state akin to sleep. So that's
Yes.
sleeping
So
space right before bed.
the reason I didn't mention that is because I don't think that's something we do when we're literally spiraling, because it does take, we talk about having that drowsy, dozy state. If we were doing that every day as a preventative prescription for getting everything we want in life, then yes, state akin to sleep. When you're in that sleepy space every day, you can do it twice a day. And if you're a napper, you can do it more times a day. In that sleepy space right before bed, that is gold. Or when you wake up in the morning, that is gold. Imagine that scene that implies it's already done, and feel it and drift off to sleep with it. Or
Well,
get up and start your day.
it almost sounds too like that's an opportunity for those of us who sometimes have chipmunks running around in our head right before we fall asleep to take a moment.
Yeah, it gives you something to do. If you have chipmunks, why wouldn't you just lie there and think about the biggest manifestation that you want in your life? Why wouldn't you spend 2 minutes feeling the feelings of what it would feel like if that was done?
So let me ask you this. What if I feel like a fraud every time I try this?
Perfect. You're doing it right. You're shifting. If you feel uncomfortable, it means you're certainly doing something different, right?
Okay.
So the goal isn't perfection, it's persistence. And that's why I say if you really want what you say you want, put some work into it. Like every day, ask yourself, what state am I living in today? And ask yourself a question, do I want to keep assuming this? So again, to bring it back to an example, do I want to live the rest of my days worrying about every single grocery bill? Of course I don't. Does it feel a little uncomfortable to stand at the till and say to myself, there's lots more where that came from? It did at first,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't now.
Well, I mean, I've talked about this before. I don't want to talk about it ad nauseum, but two broken bones in 6 months. And the same, I have loving people around me who say, how's it going? And I have the same response. Every day it gets a little better, even when it doesn't, even when it hurts, even when I've had far too long with the physiotherapist and far too long in the swimming pool and just feeling like crap, my response is the same. Every day it gets a little bit better.
That's great.
So that sounds like it's the words of someone who's in the law of assumption.
Yep.
Do I have it?
Even yeah, and if I may offer you a next step, may I offer you a next step on that?
Always.
Wouldn't it be great if every time something bad happened to us, and bad things happen all the time, we could get to the point where we realize this is part of the GPS, and when the bad thing happened, so for example, for you, 2 breaks in 6 months, instead of doom and gloom and victim mentality, which is where we all go, we could look at that break and go, what are you up to, universe? Because I know you got something coming out of this,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's that assumption and the feeling of expectation and excitement that this break is a setup for something awesome.
Okay, so I'm going to try to believe that, Jen. And if something happens, you need to remind me of this conversation.
Oh, I will.
Okay, well, that's great. A lot of fun talking about the law of assumption. Do you have anything else to add before we close off for the day?
Yeah, like, listen, this is a big law. It's hard to wrap your head around. It's not going to be a podcast one and done. If it is, I love you. Good for you. The key here is to stop the chasing. Stop chasing and instead become it. That's the secret of the law of assumption. You stop asking, how do I get that thing I don't have in my life? And you start living as if it's already yours.
Okay, slowly, slowly. I'm not going to say you're turning me into a believer, but I am listening and I am learning. And at the
Just
end of
try
the
it.
day,
Just try
that's
it.
the important part, right? One assumption at a time. Thanks, everybody, for listening to Manifest This Believer versus Skeptic. We love coming to you every week with something new, fun, and exciting. Do get in touch with us at info@truthanddare.ca. And I'll talk to you next time, Jennifer. Thanks so much.
Take care, everyone.
Okay, bye bye.